Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am your host, David Grubb. Glad to have you join me today on this Tuesday. It is chilly up here in Michigan today. It is 49 degrees right now. We had some hail today, so that wasn't fun. But what is fun is the start of the NBA season. So I know I'm last to do it, but we're going to go through my preview of the New Orleans Pelicans. And certainly at the end, I welcome your questions and your comments, and we'll go through those as well. But first and foremost, let's set the stage for this season. You guys already know. You already know the predictions and how folks feel about the Pelicans. ESPN put out its NBA season preview, and they project the Pelicans to win 32.9 games, giving them a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs this season. Obviously, one of the lowest marks in the NBA, and overall a steep fall for the Pelicans, who of course won 49 games 2 years ago, and then 21 games a season ago. This season is certainly about wins and losses. They're all about wins and losses. That's what you want to discuss. But this is about more than that as well. Every season is not about a championship. Only one team gets to have that. So there are other plot lines and other things to be watching for. This season is about a few things. It's about identity. What is Joe Dumars and what are Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver trying to establish? What do they want the New Orleans Pelicans to be? And what will this team be going forward? It's about accountability. That has been the buzzword all off season, ever since Joe Dumars came into the building. Accountability for him, accountability for the players, accountability for Willie Green. We're going to see if that holds up. Is there accountability this season when things go wrong? And they inevitably will for any team. There's going to be a rough patch, whether it's early, whether it's in the middle of the season, whether it's late in the year. You're going to deal with adversity. Is there going to be accountability when those things happen? And then, of course, the number one question this season is whether or not Zion Williamson can still be the face of this franchise for the short term and hopefully for the long term. We know the context. Joe Dumars, the new executive vice president. Troy Weaver is the general manager. The Detroit Mafia kind of, and you add Willie Green to the mix, another person from Detroit as well. A number of players come into the roster this season who were attached to both of these guys from their time in either Detroit or in Washington, where Troy Weaver spent his last season with the Wizards. So you saw the offseason, those were the moves that got made. But we start with the big story, and that's Zion Williamson. Zion, until he is no longer in a Pelicans uniform, will always be the number one story in New Orleans. That has not changed. It will not change. ESPN and other sources and everybody else, and you've seen the things, it's this categorization of that Zion has been more receptive to the tough love approach from Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver. I think that was common knowledge, right? When you went back to him at college, who did he play for? He went play for Mike Krzyzewski. And if you've ever watched Mike Krzyzewski coach during his decades at Duke, his 40 plus years at Duke, Mike Krzyzewski tore his players new ones consistently. Mike Krzyzewski was as flagrant with the curse words as any coach could be. Yeah, you can look at him and see look at little Coach K, 5'7", 5'8", whatever. That man could curse a blue streak and made grown men fear and respect him, right? So when you look at that kind of coaching that Zion got at Duke, he responded well to that, certainly. He came into the NBA, you deal with Alvin Gentry out of the gate. That's not discipline. Alvin is a player's coach. He's used to dealing with veterans. He lets veterans be. That wasn't good for Zion Williamson, and you put him into that chaos that was the pandemic. Then you bring in Stan Van Gundy. And what did Stan do? And I'm just doing this as a quick rehash. Stan, the first thing he did was call Mike Krzyzewski and say, how do you coach Zion Williamson? You got Zion's best statistical season before last year, and certainly more games, under Stan Van Gundy. Then Willie Green came along, and you were still under David Griffin, and neither of those people screams harsh disciplinarian or extremely vocal person. That is changing now. So it's not that Zion has been receptive to tough love. Zion has always responded to direct coaching. Throughout his short professional and collegiate career, his best seasons have come when he's been coached strongly or has been led strongly. I think that's what he wants. And the Pelicans failed for a number of years to give him that responsibility. Joe Dumars, I'm sure, looked at this from the outside and said, why has he never been made the centerpiece of the franchise? Why has it, since he came in as the number one pick, has every year he had to fight to see who was going to be the number one player in that franchise? And it made no sense. Whether you were a BI person or not, when you bring in a number one pick, the team is built around the number one pick. Certainly, you want, if Brandon Ingram had emerged as that kind of player could take over, great. You'd have two number ones. That's what you want, two legitimate number ones. But Zion was never placed as the centerpiece of the franchise. Now he has been. So, the talk about his physique certainly is a big talking point. Him losing all this weight and looking more like a small forward, which is really the position that he should be playing night in and night out. But he will play the four, as we know. But he seems quicker. He seems more agile. You saw him be aggressive on defense during the preseason. He had quick hands, got a bunch of steals, jumped in passing lanes, played on-ball defense. I think, again, when you have an engaged Zion Williamson, you have a good Zion Williamson. As long as he is part of the process, the ball comes his way on offense, and you get him facing up a defender rather than playing post defense or chasing somebody. Zion can play on ball. And you saw last season those opportunities where Willie Green put him on point guards and other players on the perimeter and allowed him to play defense. He can move his feet. So I think that those are the best situations for him. You've seen the improvement in his leadership, I think. But ultimately, this is about his production. This is ultimately about Zion's production. And I think what's funny is with his health, the most minutes we've ever seen Zion play per game, the most minutes we ever saw was in that year with Stan, and he played 33 minutes per game. Okay. He could put 36 minutes on this season. He played 20, 28, 29 minutes per game last season. It had been decreasing each of the last three seasons, 29 last year, 31 the year before, 33 the year before that. And what we've seen is we've never gotten Zion to play elite starter minutes. Guys like Luka Doncic, guys like LeBron James, guys like, Ja Morant, they're playing 36, 38 minutes in big games and consistently on a night-to-night basis playing 32 plus minutes, unless you're blowing teams out. This season, the Pelicans are going to need Zion Williamson to play close to that 36-minute mark. And if he's at that 36-minute mark, then yes, if Zion Williamson can play 36 minutes a night and can play 65 games, and the Pelicans, first of all, the Pelicans are going to win games if that's the case. If he plays 65 plus games and can play 36 minutes per night, the Pelicans are going to win games. We know that's been the case throughout his career. When Zion plays, the Pelicans are a significantly better team. Even with last season's disaster, the Pelicans are still above 500 when Zion Williamson is on the court. So this team is certainly more talented than last year's team. But when you look at this, it's all about, can Zion Williamson hold it together? Can he stay on the court long enough to make this work? And if he does, if he plays 65 games, the Pelicans are going to win more than 32 games. The Pelicans are going to be in contention for the playoffs and at the top, if not squarely, if at the top of the play-in, or at least if not squarely in that top 7 or 6 or 7, if Zion can play that many games. But if he plays 36 minutes, you're talking about MVP numbers, because his per 36 numbers for his career are MVP numbers. It's right around 30 points per game. It's right around 8 rebounds. It's right around 8 assists, and he's shooting 60%. If he does that for 65 games this season, you're talking about an MVP candidate, because the Pelicans are going to be in playoff contention and he's going to have the numbers to back it up. So you're talking about a guy who could make an all-star team. You're talking about a guy who could be voted in as an all-star this season if he puts up the numbers that he's capable of. Could be voted in as an all-star this season. Could make all-NBA. Could challenge for an MVP. Could drag the Pelicans, could take the Pelicans into the playoffs for the first time when they really feel like they've had an opportunity since Anthony Davis left. Because you've not really felt that when they were 8 seed, they weren't going to win there. And, during the 42, even the 36 win team, you're in the 8th seed then. You weren't going to win there. But if you get Zion Williamson now and you can get into the playoffs with him healthy and the rest of this roster healthy, what have I said? That Zion Williamson can be the best player in a series against anybody. He can be the best player in a series. Though we've not seen it, and somebody in the comments is going to post that we've never seen him play. How you think he's going? He can be. That's what the whole thing is. He can be. He's got to prove it. He's got to prove it, but certainly I don't think anybody could look at him as a talent and say whether or not he can or cannot be that kind of player, that he can legitimately take a team on a deep playoff run. And we've seen more versatility from Zion Williamson in this preseason on his offensive game. You've seen him not scared to pull up and shoot the mid-range jump shot. If he's added that to his arsenal consistently and he's not afraid to take that shot, then certainly he becomes a bigger threat. I don't think he needs to be out there taking 3 to 4 3-point attempts a game. 1 or 2 is more than enough for him. If he's getting that many up, at least then you're keeping defenses honest. Just make them legitimate attempts. Don't make them at the end of the shot clock attempts. Make them legitimate attempts and keep people honest. They'll start to go in. Some nights they won't. But as long as I think Zion Williamson is adding that mid-range shot to be able to drive and then pull up, because we've seen particularly against length, and you saw it again against Houston. But he did much better in the 4th game against Orlando. But there are times when it's difficult for him to deal with height. So if he can add that pull-up jump shot against those longer front courts, because the Pelicans do lack height, I think that's certainly something really, really good for Zion Williamson. It's the next guy we want to talk about is Trey Murphy, who certainly is scheduled to have his breakout season by all accounts. But this is a very tricky season for Trey, and he put up career highs across the board last season. And going into his 5th year, this is a guy who again, is on the verge of being one of those guys who challenges for an all-star reserve spot. It's a very crowded perimeter situation in the Western Conference. You still got to deal with guys like LeBron James and Kevin Durant and all these guys. But a Trey Murphy season, where he puts up the kind of numbers that he's capable of, if he can get those shot attempts up, I think he can put up Brandon Ingram type numbers. He averaged 21 last year. I think he can get 24 points. I think he can get to 7 rebounds. I think he can get to 5 assists. And if he can get a lot closer to that 50, 40, 90, Trey said he has to get that 3-point percentage back up. It was down around 37 last year. He needs to get that back up near 40. If he does that, the shots are going to be there. I think as we talk about him and we talk about Jordan Poole as well, and we talk about you talk about Jose Alvarado and Sadiq Bey. The one thing that you could see clearly in the Pelicans offense, even though they weren't making a ton of 3-point shots during the preseason, was the fact that the Pelicans were getting much better looks. They were getting open shots. And you take that with a grain of salt in the first 2 games because you're playing against the Australian teams, not NBA competition. But even in the last 2 games, I think the Pelicans continued to get a good number of 3-point shots from good spots on the floor. They were able to take corner threes. And if you've watched or listened or read anything that I've done for the last several years, you know that consistently we've pointed out that the New Orleans Pelicans have been near the bottom of the league in 3-pointers taken from the corner, which again is the easiest and most efficient 3-point shot you can take. The Pelicans have struggled to make and take that shot. This preseason, you saw Herb Jones willing to take that shot. You saw Sadiq Bey willing to take that shot. Carlo Bakovic, when he's healthy, will take that shot. So I think that there are players who are, and certainly Trey Murphy, Jordan Poole, and all of them. But if Zion Williamson, that's where he needs to be taking his threes from, is just get that corner shot down. And I think that opens up so much for Trey Murphy and the rest of this team. Trey will benefit so much from last season, where he had to be the primary scorer on many nights without Zion, where he played. Again, we had no games last season with the trio of Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, and Herb Jones. So you put the lessons that Trey Murphy learned about his own shot creation, and hopefully the offense continues to give him better opportunities this season. But you saw an aggressive Trey Murphy in the preseason, willing to put the ball on the floor. His shot came together in the later stages of the final game against Orlando in the preseason, where he started to make his threes. But he was still shooting highly efficiently from inside the line and taking it to the basket, getting to the free throw line, and finishing at the rim. So when you look at that kind of production from Trey, if the Pelicans, and he played at one of the highest paces for the Pelicans as well. You saw your three starters, your big three, play at the highest pace amongst your primary players. So if you're getting that kind of pace from Zion, if you're getting that kind of pace from Trey and from Jordan Poole, then expect Trey Murphy's scoring average to go up. It only makes sense that his scoring average would go up because the shots will be better for him. He will not have to do so much on his own. And you saw that in the limited time that those three players were on the floor together. I think you also see the continued maturation of Trey Murphy into a player who each year you've seen him come back more assured of his place in the NBA and his path forward. It wasn't that long ago where Trey was coming in. It was just last season before the season started. And we were talking about, was Trey going to be a starter or a sixth man? And he was asked at Media Day, how do you see yourself? I'm a starter in the NBA. He knew it. And now Trey views himself as a burgeoning franchise type player, as a guy who's going to get a max deal on his next contract, a guy who's going to be expected to lead a franchise for years to come. He sees himself that way. He carries himself that way. There have been fewer jokes and smiles. There are jokes in post game when things are fun. But on court, there are fewer jokes and there's less laughing from Trey Murphy, less of that big smile that has characterized his play so much in his early part of his career. Trey Murphy is locked in. So when you think about the opportunities for Trey at Zion playing pick and roll, if with his Trey and Jordan Poole playing pick and roll in the half court, and what's that going to do to defenses as they try to stop that? Jordan Poole turning the corner and getting downhill. Zion Williamson throwing lobs to Trey and vice versa, as you've seen them do for each other. The opportunities to get to the free throw line early and often for the Pelicans, if Trey can get to the line, if Zion can get to the line, if Jordan Poole can get to the line with high levels of efficiency, and they all have shown that they can over the course of these last few seasons, then that is an added bonus for the New Orleans Pelicans, who have also struggled to get their free throw attempts up consistently, who have complained constantly about free throw discrepancies. If you can get teams into the penalty earlier, especially for a team that will not be great defensively early in the season. I don't know about late, but I don't see them being great defensively early in the season. Then getting to the free throw line is another form of defense, right? That allows you make some free throws. You get people in foul trouble. B, you slow the game down, and that gives you an opportunity to set yourselves defensively, and you give yourself opportunities for second chance points if you can get offensive rebounds. And the Pelicans, for one thing, they are pretty good at getting offensive rebounds. So we'll see if that's a benefit. But this is the dividing line, because you have these questions about Trey and the trade possibilities. And his name was in all these trade rumors throughout the offseason, and there was no real traction behind any of them because Joe Dumars, in my opinion, and I think everybody has kind of been said the same thing, is that Joe Dumars wants to see what this group looks like together. No one has ever seen it together. He would at least like to see what it looks like together before he thinks about breaking it up. But the rumors will persist all season long on whether or not Trey Murphy is going to stay with the New Orleans Pelicans for the long term. Whether or not he and Zion Williamson can stay there because of contractual reasons, it will depend on what happens with other members of the roster and whether Pelicans think that they can afford to keep this many players who are making $30 million plus. What do they want to do with Jordan Poole's contract long term? Trey is that most tradable contract and most desirable contract for teams around the league. So this is a test for a number of things, and Trey certainly understands that. So we'll see how that goes for him. Herb Jones back this season, and you've seen, got the contract extension, so limited last season. I think that the big question for me, and people allowing Herb, and we talk about his positional switch versatility, his ability to switch all five. I don't want to see him switching all five anymore. Okay, you brought in all these guys. You brought in Derek Queen. You brought in Kevon Looney. You have Yves Missi. You've got Zion. You've got Carlo. You've got Sadiq Bey. Let them deal with the fives. Let them deal with the fives. Herb Jones is a man who is of slight build. As strong as he may be, as talented as he may be, he is a man of slight builds, and the body can only take so much. He's had shoulder problems, he's had hand problems. Those are only exacerbated by dealing with bigs. Herb Jones is a free safety, not a middle linebacker. And I think at times Willie Green has used him as a middle linebacker. Defense is strong up the middle, right? No matter what sport you're playing, defense has to be strong up the middle. In basketball, it's your point, your center. In football, your center, your middle linebacker, your safety, your nose tackle. In baseball, your shortstop, your center fielder, and your catcher. So the Pelicans have to be strong with the middle, and Herb Jones at the top of the defense is their best strength. He's having him switch 1 through 3, particularly with Jordan Poole on the perimeter, and Jordan may struggle defensively. He's not been a great defender. Again, Jordan Poole has the tools to be a better defender. He has the length, he has the quickness. Hopefully, the Pelicans scheme and his own desire to be better, which he has clearly demonstrated this offseason, allows him to do that. But I think allowing Herb to stay on the perimeter, to switch in those cases. And I think one of the things that I really did not like about the Pelicans over the last couple of years is their philosophy of switching everything defensively. I think at some point, this team, because they're not good enough individually to get through screens, communicate, they've shown that they will not do that. So the best way to keep these guys engaged is say, fight through the screen. You're not communicating through the screen. Fight through it. It's your man, unless it has to be a switch, unless the screen is so good that somebody is getting free, and that's the switch. But guys have to learn how to fight through. And I think the Pelicans are better defensively that way. I think it allows them, instead of this switching and guys getting lost in the switch and getting beat on the interior defensively, if the Pelicans are playing more man-to-man defense and just sticking with their man, then I think what you'll see is more turnovers for the Pelicans in general. Because harassing the ball, for whoever that defender is, whether it's Zion, whether it's Jordan Poole, whether it's Herb, whether it's Trey, if those guys are harassing the perimeter and they all can do that, they're all longer than their height with their wingspans, then I think you can get more pressure on the basketball on a perimeter. And you can get more turnovers and get out into transition where this team is going to have to excel. Their half-court defense cannot be there. It won't be their forte, but they can be a team that pressures people and forces turnovers, much like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, when Chet Holmgren was not available to them, don't have a particularly tall lineup. So if you're the Pelicans and you don't have many players who are above 6'10", then you've got to be aggressive in forcing turnovers to limit the times that you can get beat on the glass and get beat just defensively in the half court. You have to be good at that. I think the concerns about Herb Jones, going back to him as an offensive player, are overstated. I think the concerns about his offensive game, his shooting, are overstated. Again, his last healthy season, he was almost a 50, 40, 90 guy. I'm not asking Herb Jones to be a creator, but you've seen, again, he knows how to pass the basketball. He's an exceptional connector, and he knows what to do with the basketball as far as moving the ball to the open guy for a shot. He's one of your best screeners. There aren't many on this team, but he's certainly among the very best as a screener. He knows he doesn't take bad shots. And when you look at a guy like Lou Dort last season, Lou Dort averaged something like 11, 12 points. If Herb Jones is doing the other things that he's capable of, I'm not worried about him scoring 14, 16, 18 points. There will be nights when he does. But on a night-to-night basis, there's no need for Herb Jones to be trying to be a lead offensive threat. His job is to be a great basketball player. And again, I think when Joe Dumars looks at Herb Jones, what he says is he sees a young Dennis Rodman in some ways. Not the kind of physical defender, but the kind of relentlessness, the kind of physicality, the kind of ability to just be dogged in their pursuit of getting the basketball. And I think that this is going to be an exceptional season for Herb Jones. I think Herb Jones is ultimately what the Pelicans want to be as far as their identity. They want to be accountable, and that's what he's been from day one. They want to be unselfish, and that's what he's been from day one. He's the consummate teammate, and they want to be tough. And there are a few people who are tougher than Herb Jones. I think what you need him there to be the captain of this defense and to instruct so many of these this is a perimeter-oriented team. He has to be the communicator to get the defensive philosophy across. And he has to teach the subtleties of defense because there isn't somebody who can really relate to Jeremiah Fears as far as physical skill set and teaching him on the defensive end in the backcourt. Herb Jones needs to start teaching him the subtleties of the game. When we look at that young core, let's start with Derek Queen because we got the good news that Derek Queen will be available for the season opener. I still think that it's going to be a difficult time for Derek to play with Zion in the early parts of the season because they need the ball to operate, and Derek does not have the kind of face-up game. The big thing for Derek is going to have to dominate in those second unit opportunities when Trey Murphy is on the floor, when Jordan Poole is on the floor, and they're bringing the defenders out. He's going to have to make himself available and be active on offense, flashing through the paint, turning quickly, facing up, knocking down that mid-range shot, and then getting to the bucket and getting to the free throw line. That is his high value on the offensive end, is attacking the basket and getting to the free throw line. Not nearly as concerned about him getting assists and playmaking as a rookie. Don't worry about that. Do what you do best. Do what you do best as a rookie. Survive and contribute. And the two things that Derek Queen can give the Pelicans immediately is rebounding and interior scoring. Just focus on those things, and be consistent in that in the minutes that he gets. And most of those should come, quite frankly, in the early stages with Zion Williamson and him off the floor, because I just don't think it works with them together on the floor early on. I think it will down the road if you can, if you get the right lineups together. You can have multiple non-shooters in the front court and it work. They're just ways you have to operate, and we've seen it work in the NBA before. In the recent time, I'm not talking about years and years ago. I'm talking about year to year in this league. You see teams that do not have multiple shooting bigs but are still able to score and able to win. We'll see. I think he's obviously going to be limited, and he hasn't gotten to play. He didn't get to play in the preseason, so you wonder where his confidence level is, because he hasn't faced real competition since summer league, and that was inconsistent at best for him, and he got pulled early because of the injury. Yves Missi back for his second year. You like his improvement with his weight. You like his improvement with his skill set. He was very active during the preseason, rebounded the ball extremely well, scored it efficiently, didn't take the ill-advised shots that he took in summer league, continues to show that he's an athlete. You saw his finishes in transition, his ability to dunk the ball. You still want to see if the hands are there, but he added some things. He had a little jump hook. He's not thinking as much when he gets the basketball, which, again, he shouldn't be thinking much. If you can't do it quickly, it doesn't need to be done. But the wild card now between the two rookies, I think that I'll say this. First, for Micah Peavy, and I firmly believe that due to circumstance and the type of player he is, the most consistent, not the best, not the most exciting, not the highest upside, the most consistent rookie this year could be Micah Peavy, because I think Peavy, his shot selection was really good in the preseason. His defense showed up. He's NBA ready physically, and clearly he's had more experience than all the other young players. And if you add up all the college experience of Yves Missi, Derek Queen, and Jeremiah Fears, that's still less than what Micah Peavy has. So you add all that up, and add an NBA year, and that's still fewer games than Micah Peavy has in his career. So I think he can be the most consistent. But Jeremiah Fears, is living up to the hype. It feels like the Pelicans, are reinforcing to you that he was the right choice at 7 in this draft. He is showing a supernatural level of quickness that the Pelicans have not had in the backcourt in a long time. He can get to the rim. He has shown better shooting. He's still struggling from 3. He will struggle from 3 this season. This is not something that you typically go up during the regular season. It's one of those things that improves between years. As you saw his shot isn't broken. This isn't rebuilding a shot like Lonzo Ball or anything like that, but he's just not a great three-point shooter right now. That only comes with repetition. But he's going to be willing to take the shots. And I think more than anything, he looks like an NBA player. He understands what he's doing. And after early on, where it looked like he was trying to adjust to the speed, and he'll still make turnovers and he'll still make mistakes. But early on, he just kind of got caught between moves. In the last couple of preseason games, he was far more just straight ahead, just did whatever he thought he was going to do and didn't worry about the consequences. And that's how he has to play. As a rookie, that's how he has to play. Again, I think for any rookie, the best advice you can give them is do what you do well. Don't worry about the things you don't do well. Don't make the mistakes. Don't make bad decisions. But when you get the opportunity, for how many minutes, you may only get 2 minutes. You may only get one possession on any given night. But in that time, do what you do best. Don't be scared. Don't defer. Do the role that you've been brought in to do. And I think that there's no question that Jeremiah Fears is ready to do that. He's not afraid to fail. And he's got the talent to succeed. I just think that the question is, can Willie Green put him in situations where he is not asked to do too much early? Don't put so much on him that his confidence is shaken, but give him the opportunity to make mistakes. Don't pull him as soon as he makes one, unless he's making careless decisions. Anytime your point guard is making careless decisions, just like your quarterback making careless decisions, you got to get him on the sideline. You got to talk to him. But I think that Jeremiah Fears is the kind of player who will take coaching, is the kind of player who will eventually be a key long-term piece for the New Orleans Pelicans. Saddiq Bey, as we talk about Saddiq, his toughness, his rebounding and his shooting were all apparent. He missed a couple of preseason games there, but in what we did see, he looked physically, back to the guy who played starters minutes for most of his career and, is able to be a two-way player defensively. The three-point shot looked really good. He led the Pelicans in the preseason in three-point shooting. I think 5 of 12 from the three-point line. So I think you have a long rotation, for the Pelicans. I think that there are some concerns in the rotation. But when you have the kind of players like a Jordan Poole who comes in and, fills a role as for a third scorer, and you could have 3 20-point per game scores, which the Pelicans have had before when they had Zion, CJ, and Trey. But you give yourself that kind of opportunity knowing that you have other scorers who are capable of giving you double figures. But if you've got 3 guys who can give you 20 plus, and certainly Jordan Poole can do that, did that in very few minutes last season for the Washington Wizards, and will get open shots with the New Orleans Pelicans. I think you had to be encouraged by the fact that after 3 games of him kind of not playing his best, you got the bad Jordan Poole in the first 3 games where he was sloppy with the basketball at times, didn't make shots, took good shots at times, but didn't take, all of them weren't good, but he didn't make a lot. And then, missed in a lot of bunnies as too, missed a lot of layups in those first few games. But in the last game, everything was clicking. Got to the free throw line, made his shots, drove to the basket, showed again his quickness and his ability to finish with either hand. So if you're getting the good Jordan Poole for the majority of the games, if you're getting 65 games of good Jordan Poole and only 5 to 10 of mediocre or bad Jordan Poole, then again, this looks like a team that should easily exceed 32 to 33 wins. The concerns for this team are the guys like Jordan Hawkins. Can Jose Alvarado physically endure another season as the backup point guard? He's another guy who's missed way more games than people want to remember and is a limited player. And you wonder for Jose, how many more good games can you squeeze out of him as an undersized player who gives 100% every night, who has to play, who cannot stay in the league if he doesn't give that kind of reckless abandon, play with reckless abandon every night. So you wonder there, the backup point guard position, you have concerns there. You have concerns in the front court about the rebounding. The Pelicans were terrible rebounding in the preseason, particularly by percentage. The numbers, again, you look at the defensive rebounding percentage, you look at the total rebounding percentage, the Pelicans were in the lower third of the league again. That's not good. They cannot turn the basketball over. They were bad at turning the ball over in the preseason. They can't do that during the regular season. But overall, I think this is a roster with quantity, but you wonder how deep the quality is as far as when you get to the middle and lower tiers. Your high end has to play like it, and as you know in the NBA, stars got to play like stars, but you really need your stars to play like stars to overcome the weaknesses you have, your lack of height and your lack of, um, let's say, lack of half court creativity. Like these are guys who are great in open court. You're going to run a lot of pick and roll with this team if the ball's not moving. We'll see if it does. If they can eliminate that as a wild card, if they can commit to ball movement as an offense, then all bets are off with the Pelicans. And if they can be a top 10 offense, then you're really talking about a team that could be a contender. But the big question mark again is Willie Green, right? Willie Green in his fifth year as well improved each of his first three and then the disaster of last year. Green has to evolve. He has to be better. The players just can't be the ones who get better. Will he play with tempo? Will his teams buy in? Are they listening to what he says? Is the trust there? You've heard too many players, whether it's Brandon Ingram, whether it was DeJounte Murray in the offseason, you've heard and you've seen that I don't know if the trust is there between Willie Green and his players. Can he fix that? Do the players believe he's in? If you think that the coach may be out, if you think that he's on the hot seat, and Willie Green is on the hot seat, I think right now he's odds on as the second most likely coach to get fired. So Willie Green is clearly on the hot seat. But if you take that and you're a player and you know this, you know that this guy could get fired. How much do you really listen to him? And how much are you in a position where you say, I'm playing for me? I think certainly the Pelicans have good chemistry. I don't know how much that means in the overall scheme of things. You've heard, great bands who the members of the group couldn't get along with each other off stage, but made fantastic music on stage. We've seen sports teams that rode in 25 different cabs but came together and could win a championship. But certainly this team does have off-court chemistry. This is a team that seems to want to play together, a group of players who wants to be here, which is something that Joe Dumars was very clear about this offseason and saying we need a team of guys who want to be here. If you don't, that's cool. We'll get you out of here. It wasn't evil. It wasn't mean. It was just a matter of fact. And I think that has to be the culture. You play well for teams you want to be on. You work better in places you want to work for. So I think the front office is committed to evolving. Is Willie Green committed to evolving? Is he going to empower his players on the court to do what they do best? Is he going to put them in situations to succeed? Is he going to get the most out of this roster? And that is the ultimate question. Would it be fair if Willie Green got fired? Considering his overall record, I don't know what fair is in the NBA as far as firing coaches. You've seen coaches with championships get fired. But what is true is that every owner should only have a coach that they believe can win them a championship. And I don't think the Pelicans ultimately believe that Willie Green can win them a championship. Finally, I think that ultimately the Pelicans, the 33 wins, bar is way too low. I think ultimately the Pelicans are a 36 to 43, 44 win team. If Zion plays 65 games, if Trey can become, and if Jordan Poole can play the same level that he did just a season ago, then I think that this is a team that is a lot closer to that 43, 44, peak of wins and losses. I don't see a 50-win team just because the defensive struggles and things like that. But I'm not going to knock anybody's optimism that wants to see that. We haven't played a game yet. The big picture, again, is that this season is not about a championship. But if you can build something here, and the Pelicans can win, if the Pelicans can get to the postseason, if the Pelicans can even win a playoff series, then you may actually have that one seminal moment that people have been waiting for this franchise in the city of New Orleans since it arrived, is when people finally think we're headed in the right direction, that something is being built, because you know that the core players are under contract. It's not like at the end of the Anthony Davis era where guys could leave and did. You didn't have the contractual uncertainty in this group. All of your core pieces are under contract, at least for the immediate future. So you're not concerned about that. If you want to move pieces, you're in charge of that. So everything is positioned. If the Pelicans can have that kind of season, then they can be the team that everybody has wanted them to be, that the city of New Orleans wants to embrace, that the fan base has been craving. So the ultimate question is this the beginning of the ultimate turnaround for the Pelicans and pointing them in the direction of being an NBA championship team? Or Is this the beginning of the end of the Zion Williamson era? Start to find out tomorrow when the Pelicans play the Grizzlies. You look at that game, and the Pelicans, the good. The Pelicans have won their last three home openers in a row, including beating Memphis in Memphis 2 seasons ago. So you have that. The Grizzlies are an injured team coming in. They are missing a lot of their size. Zach Edey won't be there. I think Triple J, but John Morant will play, even though he's coming off injuries. I think that's a great matchup for Jeremiah Fears in his first game. Again, it's not about beating John Morant, but it's testing, and we get to see how quick he is up against somebody like John Morant, who is one of the quickest players in the NBA. So to see Jeremiah Fears and John Morant potentially guarding each other is going to be something that's really exciting to watch. The key here, look, the Pelicans have been fine in the first game. The key is the first 10. How do they do in the first 10? And that's been such an indicator for the history of the franchise. How do they do in the first 10? This team needs to get off to a good start. If they do, you could see, again, a quality season for the New Orleans Pelicans. But that's going to do it for me. I appreciate y'all giving me so much of your time. 41 minutes tonight. I appreciate that. No questions. Looks like in the chat. Thank you to the guys who and folks, everybody checked out Jump Rack, Brad, Brian, T5 the Great, Shane, everybody who did check in. H Bizzle. One question. Oh, okay. Last question. H Bizzle 30. How many minutes do you expect Queen to play with Looney and possibly Carlo out? I think if he's getting Looney's minutes as the backup, then I think he probably could get 15 to 18 minutes. I think you want to be careful in that first game. You want to see how he does since he hasn't played an NBA game yet. But I think 15 to 18 minutes, is reasonable. It could be more if he's playing well, but I think that's really where you want to start him in opening night, considering you don't know what his wind is going to be like. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't the pressure of the moment, the adrenaline, and all those things. We'll see how he reacts. But thank y'all again. That's going to do it. I'll be back next week to talk about where we are to get this season. All right. Until the next time, this has been the Post Up with David Grubb here on Boot Crew Media. You know how to follow me on social media at DM Grubb across all platforms. I'll talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a great day.